Alright, let's try that. Alright, yeah, sorry, last week I couldn't upload. I had a couple of jobs and, yeah, whatever. I'll try to keep it every week whenever I can, but, yeah, obviously when I've got some work, that's a bit more important than uploading these. So, if I can prepare them beforehand, it's easy enough to just upload. If I'm at home, it's easy enough. But I'm usually making these a couple of days before the Friday. And yeah, it's a bit hard when you're on set and you're working and it's just eating your time. And even if you're not on set, maybe I'm doing the coloring or editing or something, but whatever. If I can get it every week, I'll do it every week, but it's not going to be 100% of the time. So anyway. Suddenly got a storm. Okay. It's still going. This is one clash. Okay, it's finished. Alright, let's see how that goes. Anyway. I've completely lost what I was going to talk about. Oh, I know. The other week I was up in Chichibu and we hired a house to stay in because there were quite a few of us. And as I was walking around this house, one of these topics occurred to me. From the outside, the house is a bit bare, but inside was lovely. And it had really nice lighting as well. And I had about 20 minutes to film something in there. And I decided, okay, let's do something that I really like to do if I can do it. And that's only use house lights. It's usually not a great idea. The light we have in here right now is, as always, just this window light. I like the moody window light on the frame. I think it's really nice. But if I turn the house lights on now, let's have a look. And it's a bit shit. Now you can see my bad hair. And it's just flat and boring. You got these crappy shadows coming down here. Even if I close the window, just the angle of the light is just not flattering at all. And yeah, I don't like it. Let's go back. Much nicer. So, with that in mind, walking around this house, finding different angles to film from, and missing a record button on one of them, you can see that this particular house had some wonderful lights. They were really bad at actually casting light. I had to pump the gain quite a bit, but the quality was nice, just not very powerful. So using the outside lights as the key light and hoping that the bounce from the wooden floors and the wooden walls would be sufficient to fill in the shadows. It kind of wasn't. It was really dark, but it still looked really, really nice. What I like to do, I've said it and I'm really bad at articulating what I mean when I say things. I said I just put the camera down before lighting and then do the lighting. That doesn't explain much, so I'm sorry if that didn't sufficiently explain what I do. The process is usually I put the camera down and I look at the frame. And that sounds obvious, but basically in my head I'm thinking where would look nice. Generally, not the finished product, just generally what would look nice. So then I put the camera down in a rough estimate of where it should be. And I look at the actual frame, and that gives me a good idea of what needs to be adjusted. Where does the camera really need to go? Don't worry about lighting or anything, just the frame. And you look at the frame and you adjust. You adjust the camera, you adjust the frame, the set design or whatever else needs to be done. Then you look at the lighting. And when you're using house lights, you can't change the lighting. So it's a little bit different. It's mostly about that composition. And the only thing you can change is the composition of the frame, where the camera is and what's in the set design. If we look at where I'm sitting right now, I mean, basically, it's my junk. It's a lot of fun, but it's not really helping tell the story of me talking to the camera. So there's a lot I could do to change this frame, but for what I'm doing right now, I'm not going to change it because I'm lazy. But this is how my thought process goes. It's how I find a nice looking frame. With the house lights of this beautiful house, without them being powerful, they were most useful as being practical lights. And by that I don't mean practical as in actually lighting me or anything else, just as looking like they're lights in the house. You can see the light fine, but they're not illuminating anything. But they do look very beautiful. I was really lucky to have a very nice looking place there. But if you're filming in a studio, they're bound to have their own lights. If you're filming in a house, it definitely has its own lights. The real problem you get is when those lights suck. So those lights that were small and in the background of that beautiful house don't really damage any lighting that I might want to put in that frame. But the light in this room that we just put on, that would just ruin everything. It's mostly the shadows that change, but then the highlights, everything, it's just awful. So you have to treat those house lights, but you can do it. The best way I found of doing it cheaply is treating it a bit like it's outside. You can diffuse the lights coming from up top, and that really helps soften those shadows. It doesn't change the direction or how weird they're going to be, but just softening them really helps. Pay attention to where the shadows are falling, what they look like, and how many shadows you have. You want to try and keep one shadow. There was another place in the house where I put on the house lights, and I didn't realize when I first did it that I was getting multiple shadows. And it's because the actual light had 3 bulbs in it. But there was another light over in the corner that only had 1. So I turned off the one with the 3, put on the one with the 1, and then I've got 1 light. It's not the greatest frame, it's not the greatest looking thing in the world, but it's better to have that 1 shadow than having 3. It just looks more realistic to the audience. It looks more beautiful too. Yeah, without a doubt, this particular ramble today is not going to be as useful, I think, because I'm not actually doing anything. What I've decided that these are actually helpful with, and what people have told me, is that it gets the thought process going, and that's more important to me, because I can tell you all day how I do things. I'll talk forever if I can. But that's useful to a point. I watched one of these YouTubers. I'm not going to say any names. There was a lighting setup thing that he did, and I don't want to get too specific, but basically it's like, here's this room, and I want to set up the lights. I'm doing this, I'm putting a light here, I'm putting this diffusion here, and doing a negative fill on this side, and that was cool. But really, that breakdown was useful for that room at that time of day, for that particular look. I can't tell you every breakdown. No one can tell you every breakdown for every situation in every location, for every outcome, because what he ended up with was very pretty and really nice, but that's what he wanted. It's not what a director asked him to make. And whatever I make and do is all just for me. It's not for what a director needs. And in particular, that stuff that I was just showing from this house, that is quite pretty to my eyes. But that was just me putting a camera down, pressing record, and hoping for the best, getting as best as I could with the experience that I have. It doesn't really give you that experience or that information. But what I hope it does is help you think about how you achieve what you want to achieve. If I wanted a much more commercial look from that, it would have been a lot harder, because I would have needed to get bounce coming from the other side. I would have needed a lot more fill. Instead, we've got this really high contrast look, which again is beautiful. I think it's great for a moody narrative. But to do these exercises is really helpful for you to go, okay, I made this. What does it look like? It looks moody and atmospheric. Great. And the next time you go out and you do something that's not moody and atmospheric. The more you do things like this, the more you realize what you like to do. I just did I can't tell you about my work. If you're doing a commercial for Uniqlo, they like a certain look. It's a very bright look with very few shadows. It's a very studio look. It's a very bright, colorful look. And you can go out and you can try and achieve that look, which I think is a wonderful thing to try and do. It's not a look I like, but it's a look that people want. So it's really useful to know how to get there. And if you look at, say, H&M, then their ads are more of that moody, atmospheric look. They like the filmic way of things. Everything kind of depends. So even if it's a commercial, we say commercial look, but a commercial is what the director wants. It's what the company is asking for. We are artists, but we're also technicians. We need to be able to achieve what's being asked. We can't always get our way of filming the way that we want. I'm quite lucky in that I can do that a lot. It has meant that I don't get asked back sometimes because I didn't deliver what they wanted. And that's usually because they didn't or can't articulate exactly what they want. And that's okay. But we have to try and figure that out. But don't be afraid of it, because sometimes this is the best time. You do what you want to do, and you're not sure if they want that, and they love it. And if you get that, you've done it. You've fucking made it. But to get there, maybe it's just house lights. Maybe it's just a window light. Because, again, that's all that is. And it looks fine. The hardest thing for me making these videos, I'm not sure I've made one of these videos yet where I've nailed focus. It's really hard for me to just... I'm a meter away, and yeah, it's ridiculous. But it is what it is. But there are a lot of tools. A lot of tools to help you with a lot of these things. At the window, looking out of the window, I was lucky that it was quite cloudy. So there was a really soft light coming in. But if it were really, really sunny, well, you need your NDs. Everything comes down to the experience of knowing what you need to be using. And yeah, look, that photodiox ND at the back of the lens is one of the best things I ever bought. Like, for the price, the quality's... It's... I don't even know how to finish this video now, so maybe we'll just finish...